I'd like to talk about this feeling that we have in the body that I think we can all probably relate to at some point in our lives of anxiety. I'm going to use the word anxiety. Anxiety is a feeling of fear. Um, mm, and let's all take a moment to notice in the way that that feels in your body when you feel like you could use the word anxiety to describe how your body is feeling. Where does that actually, like, show up inside you? For me, it's up here. It's always up in my chest. Um, it's usually like there's, like, that kind of chest plate, like, or feeling, ribs right there in the upper front of the body, and it feels like it's right in there, and then it kind of can, like, move out, but, like, the focal point is always kind of in the center. It feels very symmetrical typically, and then it kind of will radiate out from there. In a zone that's probably, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 inches in diameter. Sometimes the focal point can feel more painful, more discomfort that's like right in the center. And then it has this more circular kind of shape to it. And mm, I've had actually quite a bit of anxiety in the last, mm, yeah, like 4 days, 5 days. And it's been an interesting thing to feel the intensity of it more than I felt in a really long time, and, um, like, my brain is aware, I am aware that the reason that we get these emotional energies that don't feel like they go away, um, is it's always attached to some sort of thought, and that whether we're aware of that thought or not, and that's what my process was with this feeling in my body this week was, what is the, ooh, like, I just got really emotional. What is the what is the thinking pattern in me that's actually causing that emotional energy to just be on a loop? So the thought is on a loop, and then the chemical that's produced in the brain, and at some point, I'm gonna have more, um, s like scientific ways of describing this because I've read so many books about this, but then if I don't practice it, it just the knowledge kind of slips away. So I don't have the technical mm, brain language to describe how this is happening or where the generation of that chemical is happening in the brain. But we have a thought, the brain generates a chemical that creates a response in the body. And if we can interrupt that thought pattern, then the chemical that's produced from having that thought, which creates this emotion, which we call emotion, this emotional energy that then shows up somatically, physically, physiologically in our body. And for me, this thought pattern was, I have to enjoy this while it's hot. This thought pattern was very much fear, which anxiety lives in this bucket of bucket of emotions of fear. So fear could be, like, even confusion. Confusion is like a form of fear. It's kind of like a mix of like fear and also like perhaps anger. Um, yeah, there's so many different words, and I'm not going to like describe all these. But I'm thinking like trepidation, like all these nervousness. They're all like forms of fear, and the nuanced ways that we feel fear. Um, so for me, it was feeling aware of this fear that I was feeling and trying to understand what my belief was related to that thing that was causing me to be stuck in that loop. And I realized that um, this place that many of us may struggle with, which is somehow feeling like we're not enough around something. And for me, it was like not enough, like in my ability to be loved, my ability to be um, like loved, lovableness. That's this experience that I have. And I was interpreting a person's behavior, decision, choices to mean to be somehow like proving to me that I was not lovable enough. And it's like, it's really interesting to acknowledge this stuff publicly because it feels very personal. And also, that's like the whole point of me doing all of this is like to normalize all of these things that we all experience, but we don't have community spaces to talk about them. Very few. They're very limited. It's not like we, go to the grocery store and talk about, yeah, I was kind of struggling with feeling unlovable this morning. Like it's just not a typical conversation that we have. And it it feels so mm, liberating with anything. So I'm talking about the specific experience that I'm having, but like with anything, it feels so liberating when we know that we're not alone in our experience and that it's a shared thing that other people have felt or are feeling. And so I didn't do that as part of my process, but what I did do was recognize that that's where this leaping pain in my chest was coming from, or I was getting stuck in this loop of not enough. And then I started dwelling on like why, like where is that coming from? And like I want to say that this isn't a new realization. I've been aware of this thing for a few years, but the way that it shows up in different dynamics of my life can be new, can be like, oh, that's a new layer of how I'm experiencing this fear of not being lovable enough. And when we become intimately connected with another person and we feel a vestedness in this in a relationship, the potentiality for ourselves to feel these vulnerable places within ourselves that haven't been met, they get really charged. And so that's what was happening for me. And mm, and so I met this pain in my body by doing what I know what can be done, which one thing is to just feel it. So that's like one practical way to be with our body's experience is, as I've shown in all these episodes of this show so far, to simply notice and move that energy through the body. So that was something I did. I would cry. I would like get on my hands and knees and like kind of a tabletop position and like move my chest around and like try and stretch and move this tightness in my body. I was taking my hands and massaging all of this s- um, tissue in my chest. And I found that like when I can almost like even get underneath my breast tissue, like I have to go like deep, like down to where like I'm feeling my ribs underneath all the tissue in my chest. There can be a release. So like these things are very straightforward, but again, like not very normalized and practiced. So those are a couple things that I did. And then it would come back. Like within minutes, it would just come back. And so this one night in particular, just feeling this like rolling of this like nonstop, it felt nonstop, this tension in my chest. And I, s- I told myself, I remember thinking like, like, time isn't gonna stop. Like, I am gonna get through this. Like, this isn't gonna kill me, and I will wake up, and I will be able to move through this in a way that, is hopefully empowering to me, and that's ultimately what ended up happening, is that I did some research, and I use ChatGPT quite often um, to sort of be introspective with my own process with my body, and I had a very pretty unsurprising family dynamic, but I know that all of these things are originating from my childhood. Like, for all of us, there's some sort of connection to our first 6, 7 years of life, and so doing a little bit of research, understanding, like, I grew up in a family that was one of 4 children. I was number 2 of 4, and, um, m my mom, even nowadays, like, she doesn't do great with empathizing emotions of her children or people in general, and even of herself. It's like she doesn't actually have the skill to do that, and I I was able to recognize that, like, all of these things are connected to my childhood, not because there was some, moment, like, monumental situation or, like, deep abuse or anything, but simply very small moments over time, many small moments over time of me, as far as I can conclude, right? This is like, I'm not going off of actual explicit memory because I can't remember, but I the sense of it feels very, very, um, evidenced in my what my awareness of is of my body right now, and looking at the way that my relationship with my mom is right now, the way my mom relays with emotional experiences that people around her are having. And my relationship with my mom feels more like the core of it than my dad, even though my parents were both around through my childhood. My parents are still married now, but my dad was not around as much. I grew up on a farm. My dad was working a lot. And so my mom was the one where there was this interfacing happening. And so because there was more time interfacing with her, there's more mm, potential for those experiences to either be successful or not successful. So I just had more of them with her. And because of that volume, and I think the relationship also with a mom is just different than it is with a dad. And for a daughter and to a mom, even differently than for a son to a mom. And that's where I think the primary kind of source of this not enoughness is coming from, is that my emotional experiences weren't acknowledged and recognized and validated and met by my mom. And then the other part of that, which is um, quality time, quality time, just showing up in presence with your child, and presence alone showing your child that who they are matters, and that who they are is lovable, who they are is worthy of love. And there's some deep core pain there for me that shows up in romantic dynamic when I go into this place of fear, which is typically in some sort of some sort of playing out where I'm feeling rejected. And then I turn the rejection into, oh, something is like not enough in me, which is for me not being lovable enough. Like, oh, I'm just not actually worthy of receiving love. And this person's choices are proving to me in their rejection, or, whatever the details are. But that's like the external kind of, it's like that's the that's on the front of the, let's say, like, and I'm thinking of like a multi-layered cake or something. Like, that's like the frosting on the outside, but like the deeper layer is that I'm interpreting that to have a meaning, and that the meaning that I'm placing on that thing is what's actually like coming from this core pain. And it all makes sense. Like, I'm living in this reality, this belief that says I'm seeking evidence outside of me to tell me that I am not worthy of this love, because I've not met that in myself. I hope that makes sense. And it's like it feels like such a straightforward thing to talk about, and then when I talk about it, I'm like, is the way that I'm describing this actually making sense to a listener?" So, um, I hope that makes sense. There's an external circumstance. It gets experienced. We place a meaning on it because of a deep belief, a deep thought pattern, an imprinted belief pattern that we have, and that generates an emotional response. And until we actually wake up to what that deeper limiting belief is, we're just going to be in a loop. There's actually no, like, I could just keep moving the pain and the anxiety with sound, and which is super important also. But that cycle is going to continue to be persistent in me until I actually understand that the reason that it's happening is because I have this core pain, which is causing me to put meaning to the experience. And it's all me. It's all me. That's the sort of mm, like interesting paradox of it all, is that I'm actually creating my own suffering. And when we can wake up to that responsibility of that, and yet the curiosity that creates the awareness, that responsibility that creates the curiosity that creates the self-awareness, like, that's where we get liberated. Yeah, that's where we wake up. That's where we can transform, that's where we can heal. So, as much as the pain was awful, I'm so grateful. Like, nothing is ever a mistake. Everything always has a deeper invitation to it, and leaning into what that is how we step into a deeper place of feeling alive and feeling thriving truly in our lives. Like, I feel so liberated, and I know that this is going to be a process for me to continue to work through this, but I feel so uh, liberated in knowing that I have this awareness, and now I can, like, be in practice with this and actually shift the thought pattern. I can, like, shift this belief. Like, it's not true. I know that I'm worthy of love. I know that I'm fully lovable up here. But now I get to not convince, I need to like transmute all of this meaning, like transmute the, and it's like you put a bunch of ingredients into something and then, like, you bake it and it comes out something else. It's like I'm putting the ingredient of self-awareness into my lived experience, and as I'm doing that, like, I'm, like, baking a different cake. I don't know if that's a good way of doing that. I also have a sweet tooth, so I'm always just gonna talk about dessert. Anyway, I hope that's helpful. Uh, yeah, being curious is where our liberation is found. And we can be in that place of curiosity and discover things on our own. And we can also be in that place of curiosity and be supported by a person to help us arrive at those places. And that is also profound. And there are people, just like anything around us in the world, who are experts at supporting this process. And um, if there's a if there's seems to be like a struggle for finding out what these things are, there are people out here in our world who are really helpful at helping us identify these things so that we can be liberated. So, and that's part of what I do with my support to my own clients. And I would say a big reason that I'm effective at supporting my clients is because of how I engage with myself in all of these things. It's all connected. I have to have the experience of it inside me in order to support somebody else to have the similar opening and awakening and liberatory process. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you. Sending love to you wherever you are on this beautiful Thursday. And until next time.